Okay, yeah, after our technical difficulties and working through, a few things, we're going to call the meeting to order. In order to make this quick, four of us are here.
Can everybody say who's here?
Carter's here.
Anna's here.
Gina's here.
Kenny's here.
Rebecca's not. Okay, so I had the agenda up, but I guess the first item on, the agenda, is oral communications. And since we're behind right now. Okay, great, thanks.
Just scroll like that to get to.
Thank you.
We could take.
So we got oral communications. Is there anybody wanting to speak to the ASCC on items not on tonight's agenda? You have any hands?
No.
Okay. We'll move on to the first item of new business, which is the architectural review of an application for the new middle school courtyard. This is an item with Woodside Priory. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees for the Woodside Priory and will be recusing myself. I'll be outside. Can you, act chair?
Act as vice chair. All right. All right. And so do we have a staff presentation for this item? Where is he?
Yes,
Oh, it's on that. Got it.
I'm gonna mute this, I think.
Thank you very much. And I'm hoping everyone in the schoolhouse can hear me okay. Great. I just if maybe a thumbs up if you can hear me in the schoolhouse, okay? Great, thank you. I'll go ahead and proceed then.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Breen. My name is Jake Garcia. I'm consulting planner for the town. The item before you tonight is a request for an architectural review for a middle school courtyard, site improvements, significant tree removal, and a site development permit at the Woodside Priory School located at 302 Portola Road. The Woodside Priory School is a private college preparatory school for grades 6 through 12. The campus is approximately 50 acres in size and designated for institution land uses. In the general plan, it is in the town's residential estate zoning district. It is a conditional use governed by a conditional use permit, which was first approved in 1968 and was most recently amended in 2021. An overall master plan map of the campus visually implements the development standards as detailed in the CUP language. The approved map is shown here on your screen. The proposed middle school courtyard project before you tonight is located interior to the campus and is noted by the red box on the map. Last year, the Woodside Priory School prepared conceptual plans for a series of forthcoming projects and associated CUP amendment for preliminary review by both ASCC and the Planning Commission. There was a total of 3 meetings where the ASCC and Planning Commission provided the applicant team with initial feedback on potential forthcoming projects. In follow-up to the preliminary meetings, the Woodside Priory School has refined their proposals and is moving forward with 4 projects. This includes the middle school courtyard. This is the project that is before you tonight. A chapel addition and remodel and new chapel administrative office building. This is a forthcoming project. An addition and remodel to the existing Gambetta gym. Again, this is another forthcoming project that you'll see in the future. An amendment to the existing conditional use permit, which proposes changes to the CUP and would further allow for a new athletic center, conversion of an existing campus road into a pedestrian corridor, and a new driveway entrance from Gambetta Lane. This will also be coming at a later date. Focusing in on the project before you tonight for the middle school courtyard, on your screen are the existing and proposed site plans for the area of the proposed work. Again, the proposed project is located central to campus, surrounded by the Briggs Science Center, the low-key learning center and classrooms, the Moss Family Commons, and the East housing buildings. The applicant proposes to convert an existing fire access cul-de-sac road, which is no longer in use, into a middle school courtyard. Make some reconfigurations of on-site parking and driveway aisle, and implement stormwater management improvements. These site plans show the proposed changes to the impervious surface, which is hatched, and proposed to increase by approximately 1,576 square feet. This plan also shows the increase of parking by a total of 9 spaces and within the close proximity of this courtyard. There are no other changes outside of this scope of work. And town staff has reviewed the application and has found the proposed project to meet the town's requirements, as well as the requirements of the governing conditional use permit. I would also like to emphasize that there are no changes to the conditional use permit tonight, and that this project fits within what the conditional use permit allows for the Woodside Priory School. This next slide is an illustrated site plan and shows most of the proposed site features of the middle school courtyard project, including the new sports court with perimeter fencing to the east side of the courtyard, new steel trellis and seating area to the south side of the courtyard, new site paths, landscaping, exterior lighting throughout the project site, stormwater management improvements throughout the site, and parking and driveway modifications to the north of the courtyard. I'll go through the various project components in the following slides. Starting with the trellis is proposed to be made of steel with a translucent glass roof proposed over the proposed tier paved seating area. On your screen is the sections and roof plan showing the trellis and seating area. The trellis is proposed to be 16.2 feet in height, measured from the bottom of the seating area to the top of the ridge. And the steel members are proposed to be a brownish gray color. The colors and materials also shown on your screen meet the town's light reflectivity requirements and will meet the appropriate WUI requirements for non-combustible materials. Moving on to the landscape features and materials. The proposed middle school courtyard project includes materials that will match the existing campus materials. This includes the use of stone veneer for low site walls, concrete, cobble paving, and decomposed granite paving. The sport court is proposed to have an 8-foot, 3-inch black wire mesh perimeter fencing and a lower 4-foot, 4-inch fence of the same material to divide the court in half. The sports court will be concrete with a plexi paved finish. An artificial fiberglass turf is proposed in the center of the courtyard. The project proposes the removal of 16 trees, 6 of which are considered significant coast redwood trees and labeled in red on your screen, and 10 which are considered non-significant trees and labeled in orange. The project arborist indicated that the significant tree removal, the reason for significant tree removal is because of the anticipated impacts to the trees by the proposed construction. And the Conservation Committee has reviewed the project plans and have indicated that they do not have concerns with the proposed tree removal. On your screen is the proposed planting plan. This proposed project consists of 12,454 square feet of new landscape planting. Most plantings are proposed in natural groupings throughout the site and around the courtyard perimeter and between the site paths. Landscaping is proposed to be vegetated with predominantly native plants. The planting list consists of trees, shrubs, perennials, and grasses. And the project proposes to utilize 79.6% of the maximum allowed water allowance. The town's conservation committee has also reviewed this component of the project and provided support and recommendations to the applicant team. The Woodside Priory has incorporated a majority of the recommendations from the conservation committee into the proposed plans. However, the conservation committee has expressed that they oppose the use of artificial turf on the project and recommends the use of natural turf instead. The Woodside Priory School has considered the Conservation Committee's recommendation, but maintains concerns about the use of natural turf due to drainage issues in the winter and water consumption in the summer. The school emphasizes that the area is intended to be a play space for middle school students and must be usable year-round. The project proposal includes 4,780 square feet of artificial turf. Here's the breakdown of the proposed grading. The project proposes 510 cubic yard of soil movement, subject to the site development permit, And the final discretionary approval of a site development permit of 510 cubic yards is by the ASCC. The amount of grading is proposed to facilitate the courtyard improvements, stormwater improvements, and increase the proposed parking spaces. Proposed exterior and landscape lighting is identified here on your screen. There are 3 styles of light fixtures proposed throughout the courtyard and under the proposed trellis. All fixtures are compliant with the municipal code. This slide shows the public noticing conducted. A notice was sent to all property owners within 1,000 feet of the project site on May 31st, and no public comments have been received to date. The applicant has conducted their own public outreach through their community email list as well. This is the end of the staff presentation. Both staff and the applicant team are available for any questions by the ASCC. The applicant team has also prepared a presentation for the ASCC. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Questions? Do we want to ask him questions or do we want to wait for a second? Do we want you guys to do your presentation? Is there anything jumping out at you in terms of asking a question?
I have one.
Okay.
And that's, Jake, you mentioned that the outdoor lighting was compliant with the municipal code. Has it been checked as to whether or not it's compliant with the design guidelines?
We did review it, and we made recommendations for a decrease in lighting, which the applicant team did take into account, and they have since reduced their lighting. So the ASCC may wish to consider further discussion of the lighting if they would like. However, it does meet the town's municipal code, and recommendations have been implemented. Generally speaking, the lighting is low in lumens, and the applicant has emphasized that it is for the purpose of safety movement on site.
You have a question? I have a question about artificial turf. Is it impervious at this point? Is it considered an impervious surface?
It is not considered impervious,
Okay.
as we, yeah, it does not.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so do you guys, I'm sure you have a major presentation for us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so
Here we
much.
are.
If someone is speaking into the microphone, they'll need to unmute themselves.
Can we go online?
We can hear you.
Can you
great.
hear us?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So somebody. Do the volume.
Yeah, so when we're speaking, everybody has to have volume down and.
Volume down.
I think we have it up. Jake, can you hear us?
Yes,
Okay.
and the echo has gone away.
Okay.
Sorry, my fault.
Well, thank you, members of ASCC, town staff, I don't know where, but thank you very much for really thoughtfully and thoroughly looking at this project. As you heard from Jake, we really think this is going to provide a great experience for our students. Most importantly, it's going to provide, I think, some great space for our middle school, and it's going to provide some amazing outdoor space. We're really looking to convert a space that wasn't intended to be, educational use, to something that's really going to, I think, impact and affect, our community. You heard it, kind of more spaces to play, more spaces to gather, more covered spaces. more learning spaces, all spaces that we think, again, are going to make the experience for our middle schoolers, but also, the generations of middle schoolers to come, that much better. We are delighted to partner with EHDD. EHDD was founded in 1946 by a gentleman named Joe Eschrick. Joe has great ties to Portola Valley. He designed many homes here and really kind of popularized that idea of using the place, to really kind of match or mirror the context of the structure. So we're really excited to kind of take on that ethos as we really look to impact, our learning space as well. EHDD, has been doing this for 80 years. And you can see some of their work, Sea Ranch, the Exploratorium, the aquarium, right? Monterey Bay Aquarium. Hewlett Packard also right here in Los Altos just finished that, right? Which is fantastic. And again, EHDD has done such a great job of really partnering with us to learn about our values, but just as important to learn about Portola Valley and understand how Priory fits in with Portola Valley and how Portola Valley really impacts Priory. So they've just done an extraordinary job, with that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Emily.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay. So as Patrick mentioned, we always start with place. So this process has been a wonderful opportunity to get to know Priory, get to know the particularities of the campus and larger Portola Valley. We're also joined here by Eric Prince from Atlas Labs, our fantastic landscape architecture firm that we've been partnering with closely throughout this process. So here you see a plan of the campus. I think Jake walked through it very well. You can see that the middle school courtyard is really tucked in the middle of campus, the existing classroom sort of ring an outdoor courtyard. Next slide. And then here you see it in 3D. So you know that the campus is on a hillside. There are these sort of, as you drive down Portola Road, there are these layers of trees that provide screening as the campus moves up the hill. The building's tucked into the site. The middle school courtyard is really at the top of the hill, and you can see the property line around the campus. It's really buffered from adjacent neighbors and properties with kind of exposed grasslands and athletic fields. Okay, so when we first started walking around campus, we started to look at the near kind of view sheds that were important to preserve as we looked at this site. So even though we're looking just at the middle school right now, we want to see it within the larger context of the campus. So what you see on the left are the internal campus view sheds that we felt were really important to keep. And then what you see on the right are the larger view sheds, where as you're walking through campus, all of a sudden it opens up and you get that view through to the larger hillside or context, and that being really important to kind of create a sense of place and orient to the larger community. And so you can see that the middle school courtyard is one of those potential view sheds. The campus, as you may know, is organized around a series of squares with walkways in between. And so this middle school courtyard, as you can see on the right, is kind of the culmination of that campus promenade as it weaves through campus in these series of squares into the middle school courtyard. And I think we'll show you some existing photos right now. I think there's the opportunity to use that courtyard more effectively and efficiently and create a better space for the middle school students to be. Okay, so these are the elements of the site. You can see the existing courtyard that's paved, labeled middle school courtyard. I think one thing that we learned in walking through the site is it can become very hot and exposed. It's paved with the pavers that make up the rest of the courtyards on the campus. And so we wanted to create shady spaces for the students to be, and really that exists underneath those existing trees. So what we did is peel back the existing planters, add some kind of stone slabs, and so it allows areas for the students to sit underneath those existing trees when the larger courtyard is really sunny. I think it's also nice if you kind of, I remember as being a middle school student, it's nice to have little nooks and crannies where you can sit with one or two students, have a little chat where you're not so exposed to the larger group. So I think this creates little pockets of spaces for students to be. We're taking the existing paved cul-de-sac, peeling away all that paving and creating a flexible lawn space that's student hangout, outdoor classroom, informal learning space, and really creating a softer, more natural environment for the students to be in. To the north of that lawn, we're retaining the existing redwoods and we're adding a series of bioswales. It's taking the stormwater drainage from the hillside, and instead of bringing it all to one culvert as exists now, terracing it through a series of bioretention planters. There's a shaded outdoor classroom to the south, and that's where the selected tree removal has allowed, it's really an exceptional view that you just don't get right now, has allowed that kind of opening up to the larger context. You can imagine sitting in that classroom, having a kind of side view of Windy Hill, the larger context, and having an outdoor classroom that's covered and shaded and flexible that the students can gather or for outdoor learning. The courts that exist there now are then pushed to the side up against the existing buildings with a fence around them. And those are the pieces, but I think the renderings really tell the story. So if we go to the next slide. So here's the before. You see the existing cul-de-sac.
Next slide.
Next slide. That's next slide. And then the after. So here you see the existing canopy. It's north facing, so you're looking up to the hillside and you're also facing north, so you don't have the sun in your eyes. You see that view through the flexible field and then the added planting and spaces underneath the trees near the existing courtyard. Next. Again, the sports courts filling that existing slot and view through the cul-de-sac. And next slide. The reimagined space. You can see that the canopy is a simple steel and glass structure. We wanted to create a roof that was translucent, so we're letting in daylight during the day, and then terrace seating that again can be used for a small gathering or for informal student seating. Let's switch.
Change.
Seeing change, yeah. Thank you all. Eric Prince, landscape architect, really happy and grateful to be here tonight. This is a fantastic project. So we've been working with Emily on the material palette, and I think, always trying to bring a humble approach to using the contextual materials of the campus. So we're really using a lot of the vernacular of the stone walls, the same pavers, even trying to use where we can the decomposed granite to soften some of the paving materials. And as Emily mentioned, we are using these stone slabs that match those the historic stone walls along there to terrace some of that transitions down to the court and provide the informal seating. It's a way that kind of allows us to still have tree roots growing underneath that and to accommodate in a very comfortable and a warm fashion students to be able to sit and to gather in those small, more intimate groups. As I mentioned, we do have the artificial turf, which is porous, but one of the benefits is this is a slight ravine within it. So all the water that does drain through is able to kind of be taken in through that. And so it is a material that has sand into it. So there's a degree of filtration, which is great, and impervious or pervious surface to that turf. Given the drainage considerations, that's really important that we do have adequate drainage because of the heavy use that we anticipate having with that. And then the sport court finish, which allows for not just basketball and volleyball, or other games like you might be familiar with, like kickball, so that there's a level of painting to have multiple games that happen into one court. And then the fencing that is metal face. So we've taken liberty to try to be contextual with the materials, to be non-combustible, but also be really sensible and use a lot less carbon materials. So we're really happy with these stone slabs. And for the planting, I think, as you might have seen from the existing photographs, there are a lot of redwoods right there. The site is fairly exposed on south and southwest, so it's pretty high and dry. There is one oak that's doing really well, which we're happy to protect, but the new planting is all coast live oaks that we're trying to achieve, so that we're trying to get more of the balance of what we think is typical of this hillside, a little bit less low-lying redwoods and more of the oaks are natural to that hillside. And then also a fabric of grasses, native grasses. So primarily, again, coast live oaks for the tree canopies to add the shade where we need it. And then this native grass and meadow mix, which is really the more dominating grasses that frame the flexible lawn. And we do have different microclimatic conditions. We do have some redwoods that we're protecting where we are going to be having to address some of those microclimate ground covers. And then we do have accents for the biofiltration plants that will improve the stormwater, which do, if you go to the next slide, and these are representative of a little bit more of the biodiversity that we will see into some of these microclimate areas. All of that using taking inspiration from your town center here that we've studied, and the native planting list, which we're really inspired by, and it speaks to really makes sense for the campus and this beautiful, beautiful valley that you all call home. So we're really excited about this. I think a lot of the plants, a lot of the regional view shed, the students will really kind of take a lot of advantage and learn a lot from reconnecting to this great hillside landscape. So thank you.
Thank you.
We also have members of the civil engineering team with BKF engineers and members of the project management team and development management as well, if you have any other questions. That ends our applicant presentation.
Any other presentations? We're done? Questions, if the commission have questions of the team?
On the native plantings, Jake mentioned that there's some non-native plantings, but it seemed to be implied that some of it's non-native, most of it is native. Just curious why it wouldn't all be native.
There's a lot of non-native planting there.
Okay, are we? All of the plants are kind of on the town approved plant list, which isn't exclusively native. And, you know, I think you can argue a lot of nuance between is it native and at what time is it native to, but primarily we would say, yes, it's native to the conditions that exist there and from the town's approved plant list on that. So it's all exclusively from that. We aren't bringing anything new. And I think in particular to that point, if there is something that might not be classified as native, there's no invasive qualities to any of the plants that are on the town's list, which is completely in keeping. And it's a pretty simple palette. And I mentioned that, you know, we are using one tree that are planting, the coast live oak, which is really what, if you look around the campus, it's what's kind of naturalizing and growing really well right there. So we know that there are some redwoods that are being lost, but the grasses and the meadow mix is the biodiversity that we're adding to it, but it's pretty simple with the bioswales. And we do have some microclimate areas that are a little bit more shady. So sometimes you do have to, you know, adapt maybe some of those exclusive native communities, but I would say, you know, I don't know how the figures, but it's primarily all native, right? And I think the town's list is, you know, 95% native, but I can't speak to that exactly.
Thank you.
Do you have a question or
Questions? Questions or comments?
questions? We're not at comments yet.
Um.
Yeah.
I don't really. have any.
I was just curious if the artificial turf is going to have irrigation because of washing it clean. Are you putting it in?
I can.
Do we not talk?
Shouldn't do questions.
Okay, I think we're swapped. The pause is not, well, a lot of that, you know, you do clean it, right?
Yeah.
And it does require maintenance, and it's usually tied to what they recommend as far as the manufacturer. Now, it's also, you can rake it, right, to make sure that it looks good. So it's more of a maintenance of what, what is decided, how much to put on it. And also, there's a warranty period that they do a recommendation on that. But it's, the good thing is you can have the sand infill with it, which doesn't have, there's an option to do the rubber or the sand, and the sand's a lot easier to maintain. You don't have to put, the plastic on there. So hopefully that answers your question. No, what we usually do is we will have like what they call a hose bed, where you can have the hose just to spray down the sidewalks or anything like that. So we do have irrigation that helps with maintenance, but that's not, it's not sprayed down. No, there's no automatic irrigation to that. And everything else, the planting is all low water use and very efficient irrigation systems.
Okay, from the community, is there anyone here who would like to speak? And if you do, does this work today? No? So you,
Here, I'll just put this, or that one.
so Craig, do you want to come up and talk? Or I guess you could talk from there.
Should I just talk from here?
Yeah, sure. Improvising
Yeah, you'll have to
on that
sit
mic.
there, and then I'm gonna disconnect her.
Just to back up, I just skimmed the packet, so these are preliminary comments. Oh, yes, I'm Craig Heber. So I live on Portola Green Circle. I'm right across from the Priory School. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. And again, I just skimmed the packet, and I'm going to refer to my notes to try and keep things short as possible, concise and clear. So you've already talked about the lighting. I think it'd be, I would like to review it a little bit further just to see what it looks like. But I understand that it meets all of the codes. Just a comment about the artificial turf. I would like to see, if possible, just some argument why it wouldn't be natural grass or something like that. Maybe that could be detailed a little bit further in the report, why you would go to artificial and why natural would be kind of out of the question. I think that would help me and some of the other people in Portola Valley. Let's see, the last things. I don't know if it's planned to have an on-site visit like we have had on a couple of other occasions. That would be super helpful. I would really appreciate that. And I know the attendance would probably be pretty good. And then just the last thing, if this does go ahead, and I'm pretty sure it will, I would like to see, and some of my neighbors would like to see, compliance with the noise ordinance. It's not been a problem recently, but in another construction mode, we did note that there was some construction occurring on the weekend, which is is a violation of the noise ordinance. So, and it did disturb a couple of people that commented to me. I don't know if it ever went back to the Priory, but that would be an expectation. That's the end of my comments. Okay, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Pardon? Oh, we do have a heads up. Okay. So can you do that? We'll call upon them.
Read a comment, so I'll just get you to say, Rita, go ahead.
What?
Just say, Rita, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you. Rita Comas Whitney. The project looks beautiful, and I'm sure that the students will love it when it's done. But how long will it take to get done? And what will be the impact of the students while it's being built, and also to the neighbors, if there's a timeline of when it's being done in the winter, when it's raining, and how will the students be able to work around that? Thank you.
Did you guys hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll wait till
Should we- Next person who wants to comment, please go ahead.
Christy.
Hi, this is Christy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Nice presentation. I think some added benefits for the children of the school. I am concerned about the previous CUP that we are supposed to announce this widely to the town when changes of the priory happen. So rather than just 1,000 feet away, I think this should be announced to the entire town since it's a larger property and it's a school and it's on a main road. So I think we could do a better job with letting people know that this is going through and it's in the process now. I was informed by a friend, but I would like to be informed by the town. So I believe that's written, but you can go ahead and check that and I appreciate a comment on that. I'm also concerned with the impervious surface of plastic. So anytime there's an impervious surface, we do see more water running downhill. So that comes to my next question is drainage. We know there's a drainage issue coming down the hill, down Gambetta Lane. And it doesn't really go anywhere except for on our public trail and then makes a lake pretty much on the trail that we can't walk in the winter because all the water is gathering there. So my question for you is, can you point out the storm drain gathering areas that you're planning, and what are you going to do to improve the water for the track? It's on the other side of the fence from the track. That whole area goes underwater with high rain. And I think it's something that the Priory needs to deal with so we don't get overwhelmed and get our trails washed out. So I think it hasn't been taken care of to date, yet with more impervious surface, such as 5,000 square feet, what will happen to Gambetta Lane and all of your drain systems, and how are you going to improve those? It's my understanding with artificial turf that at some point artificial turf needs to be replaced. And I'd like the ASCC to write a more detailed plan on maintenance and what they expect. Because if it's not doing its purpose after 10 years and you decide to put in the plastic, how does the sand look underneath? And does that need to be replaced? Because it's my understanding it doesn't have an indefinite lifespan. Let's see, you said rubber or sand, but I think either one needs to be replaced. Can you comment on that? And I really am interested in the storm drain area. We could do a better job with hills and coming down to our public lands, trails, because we walk on trails, horses go on trails, bikes go on trails. I want to be able to walk and not have to go around. And we know that the town has a drain system outside the track as well. So how can we work together and do a better job between the two entities? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
That's it. So it's up to you if
Okay.
you want to elevate any of those questions.
Well, we can talk about that, but I think we'll close public comment on this and pick up some of these questions. So do you want to address any of those questions that we just heard? And also it's there are 4 different projects coming towards us, right? And so there's going to be a Gambetta project. I would imagine, as you're going through the comprehensive design of all of these buildings, that you're going to be dealing with drainage, et cetera, et cetera. So I imagine that's in the works. So that's all I wanted to say about that, but go ahead. Yes.
town resident. I live in the Cortland neighborhood, and Priory is retaining my services, and I also happen to be a real estate developer and a project manager. So they retain my services as their owner's representative. So if Patrick.
Josh, it's a little hard to hear you.
Yeah,
From the
so let
microphone
us-
that's
let
coming
Okay,
us
from.
sorry,
leave
we're coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe we'll start over again. Thank you. So Commissioner, my name is Josh Porter. I'm a town resident here. I live in the Corte Madera neighborhood, and the Priory has retained my services as a development manager, owner's rep, to help them navigate the complexities of development projects that you can see from the many excellent questions asked by members of the public. We will answer any of the questions that you feel you want answered, which is the normal process. We would like to keep the questions centered to the project that is here before you. Some of the questions that the last member of the public asked were in regards to other projects. We will be in front of this commission several more times for other projects, and there will be a conditional use permit amendment of which is not being dealt with this evening. So we'll take any questions you would like to see elevated from any of the members of the public or your own questions.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments from you guys about the two the calls that we got?
I think one of the questions that was relatively easy to answer is the caller that asked about the timeline. So after tonight's vote, if the project is approved, there is a 15 days appeals period. We are concurrently having our project reviewed at the building department level so that we have a building permit as well. We would like to get this project underway in the summer of this year, potentially as early as start of mid-July. And the intention is that it is a 90-day construction schedule. So roughly 3 weeks, lasting from approximately July into the fall. Regarding the artificial turf question, I don't know if members of the design team can answer it. It's came up several times. I know the first gentleman that asked the questions regarding artificial turf and sort of more mathematics behind it. We can definitely provide that offline. But this evening, that's a lot of complexity to discuss at this level. I think unless the members of the design team saw any other questions to respond to.
Well, I just maybe speak to the reason for the artificial turf. If you saw the photo where the cul-de-sac was very low, so all the water would come basically down into that cul-de-sac, run across, and go into a large culvert and then down. And so we have to keep most of the grade. We're not changing the grade so much. So we still have that central area fairly being the low side. And so in our experience with natural turf and with a lot of water drainage, particularly in the wintertime, that gets heavily saturated. And with kids playing on it, it becomes compacted and the turf is not able to take that water, and a lot of it ends up sheeting off, becomes very muddy. The drainage becomes very hard to deal with. So that I think we are sympathetic to the idea of using natural turf, but in this particular context, in this setting, given how we want to make sure to use it throughout the year, the drainage would be very problematic to handle with the natural turf, particularly in the wintertime. And we would have to make it very porous and very easy to drain, which then in the summertime, in contrast, would make it very difficult to irrigate. You have to put a lot of water to maintain the turf. So it's because of our natural climate of rain in the winter and none in the summer, it would be very hard to maintain this turf 2 times a year. So that's why the artificial turf was introduced, because for this particular setting, it gives the most maximum benefit for using throughout the year. And it actually benefits the drainage, local and regional drainage watershed to the greatest degree in our opinion.
Thank you.
We'll mute and then, yeah, we'll mute. No, we were just unmuting, so.
Okay.
Commissioner comments.
Okay, I mean, I was gonna ask a quick follow-up question about the turf and the drainage. Can you comment that, presumably you've done civil engineering on the project. Is this turf field acting as a retention device, or is it serving the function that you're describing in order to get the water off? And if so, is there a retention device?
So we actually have our civil engineer on the line, and so we're gonna mute and we're gonna let our civil engineer answer the question.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
This is Dale Lita, BKF. I'm the project civil engineer. So to answer a question that was just asked, and just in general, so the Courtyard project incorporates 3 levels of kind of stormwater capture and management. Uphill of where the drive aisle and existing parking is today. You know, we've looked at all the drainage patterns coming down through this area. It's a rather unique situation. You have roughly, 10 acres of uphill hillside which drains down to this area. So we wanted to ensure that we had a belt and suspenders drainage approach. And so uphill of parking and improvements, we're proposing enlarged swales to help capture that water and control it with depressed ponding areas and surface drains to help provide some storage. On the downhill side of the drive aisle and parking, our larger bioretention planter is located, which will also take that water and any excess water that spills over from those swales. That bioretention planter provides the largest percentage of our stormwater detention, and we've done all the sizing to ensure that it meets the town's requirements and will reduce runoff from any increases in hardscape. The synthetic turf area, being a natural depression, we can expect some water in that area, and in fact, it does act as a third kind of safety feature, where any water that doesn't get into the system, if there's any additional flows, or say a drain gets clogged and there's spillover, it has that ability to capture and detain water also. The way the synthetic turf section is constructed, it's very similar to like a permeable paver. You have this, it's not like it's, synthetic turf on concrete. You have the grass surface material, and then you have this permeable rock and sand, which provides excess storage below that. In addition, because of the shape and the conforms we have, we get excess ponding within that area to allow water to drain down. So there is additional benefit incorporated into the turf, but it's fundamentally kind of an emergency feature.
Yes?
Yeah.
Does that work for you? Thank you very much. So now I think we should start comments. And would you like to lead off following your question?
Sure. I think overall, so we're meant to provide a recommendation to Planning Commission, right? That's what?
No.
This is just,
It's not going to planning, right?
it's not
No
going to
planning
Planning
commission.
Commission. Okay.
We're just voting.
Okay.
for the two first.
I overall, I think the project is nice. I like all kinds of different aspects of the project that have been mentioned. And it sounds like you've done your homework, which is great. Thank you. In terms of, so I'm interested in supporting that we approve this. I think we need to think about responding to some of the neighbors' concerns, just asserting that the construction activities follow the normal town rules. I think there will be an expectation of a construction plan, which will need to assert those rules. So we could have that as a condition or not,
Well,
to ensure that.
I mean, there's an
I
ordinance.
mean, construction staging falls under
Yeah, I mean,
the project, so
yeah.
that will happen at town hall.
Commissioner, if I might, I don't mean to interrupt. One of the things that we did-
Hold on a minute.
One of the things we did submit, and I apologize to the member of the public that I didn't answer with this, in addition to the standard town of Portola Valley construction staging and logistics requirement, the priority conditional use permit amendment from 2021 requires us to submit a construction management plan in a written narrative form. We have submitted that, staff has reviewed it. In addition, that management plan will go into the contracts written to the construction teams on priority, which may be different than previous projects. And so we hope that written construction plan, along with the town's existing rules, will ameliorate any of the issues that members of the public had in previous projects.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any other comments?
So I guess the main comment I have is still with regard to the lighting, because I think it's potentially a very impactful project with regard to the dark skies in Portola Valley. And so the reasons why we have the design guidelines around the lighting, I think would be just as applicable, if not more applicable, to a large project like this as it would be to a residential. So I think we do really need to see that it's either follows the design guidelines or there's a very strong argument made for exactly how it doesn't. Because the design guidelines are meant to support safety. So I would go as far as having a condition to make the lighting comply with our design guidelines. Is that something that would be acceptable?
Let's not
Yeah.
talk about that now. Now we're doing commission discussion. Okay,
So it's
so
just among ourselves?
no, well, we can talk amongst ourselves, but I
Yeah.
mean, we'll get to questions later. But, so you've made your statement about lighting.
Yes.
Yes, and I'm happy to say something too, because
Yeah,
I mean, I know, so we have, I think the last project that came up, which was in February, there was a similar discussion. And I do think for the trellis lighting, the lumen levels are over the max lumen output. But I mean, having done very minimal research, BK lighting has a very similar fixture. And if you pick the right bulb color temperature of 3000 kelvins with specific optic options, you can meet that. And so I would say, for that particular light, it feels like a very straightforward fix to get the lumen levels down. And I think we could make some sort of
or reduction of
requirement
fixtures.
Yeah, the guidelines offer options for how you deal with it, whether it be by reducing fixtures or reducing lumens per fixture.
Okay, other comments?
I think it's a nice project. I think it's very respectful of Portola Valley, the design guidelines. Having visited the site earlier today, I think it's going to be a major improvement for that area, which will, it is. It's a turnaround with a massive amount of water just coming down into a single spot for retaining water. And it feels respectful. It's nice to have that trellis along the edge, and I think it's going to be really nice that view opens up, because that's just a beautiful, beautiful spot. So my main comment was just, similar lighting. And then I did have kind of a similar comment about the turf, whether it required irrigation, but I think they gave a great explanation of that.
Great.
Yes.
Well, I, agree with my fellow commissioners. I think it's a wonderful project, really excited about it. My comments are about lighting, mostly because of the tree removal and that you sit at the top of the hill. And I don't want residents to be looking up into the source of those lights in the trellis. That's a big deal because they would be looking at the bulb. So I want to make sure that this is really finessed where these lights are going, because you're removing the pine trees that block that site. I mean, I think it's wonderful to open it up, but boy, I mean, I think I need to be convinced that the lighting in that trellis will not be seen from people down below, looking up from neighbors, even across the valley, looking up into the source of light. So that's my biggie. My other is your landscaping, Coast Live Oaks. We all love Coast Live Oaks, but if you have artificial turf, you know, and I mean, they have that really sharp leaf that's very hard to break down. You know, you might want to consider a different tree. A valley oak, except that would be sitting up on top of the hill. They break down. I mean, a live oak leaf doesn't break down very well. And I don't know where it's being planted in relationship to the artificial turf, but you need to consider that, you know, because otherwise your turf is going to be covered in sharp leaves, you know, so and it's not fun, you know, to walk on live oaks leaves.
Or fall
So,
on it, or
yeah,
run
or
around it like
anything.
in the
So,
store.
you know, you may reconsider your tree choice. I mean, and those are my comments, but I need to understand the light. I really need to see the lighting and how it, what you're thinking about doing with those fixtures. They may even need something over them, you know.
The lens.
I just want to make sure that the people who live across the valley are not looking into light bulbs. So, and I would like that to hear what the resolution of that is going to be, whether or not we do a conditional approval that the lighting comes back, you know, that just the lighting, you know, but you know, other than that, I think the project is marvelous, but I need understanding about that.
Do you think that it needs to come back in front of us, or if it's something that can
No,
be-
no, no, no.
Yeah.
What that one of the,
You're thinking-
not that you wouldn't be coming back, but one of the
this
commissioners
project.
would take a look at what your lighting solution is in town hall. So, and I think one commissioner is fine to look at the
I would
lighting.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, yeah, I think that we should move towards approval with the lighting plan coming back to a commissioner to review and maybe have discussion.
Mhm.
So those are my thoughts. And now you guys, if you want, do you want to respond to any of this? Or do we want to have a motion to approve?
I'm prepared to approve, so.
I think we could go ahead with a motion.
you know, And the
What?
conditions that Jake prepared
Yeah.
were,
Yes.
seemed great. I mean, I didn't have any comments on
Nope,
that,
I
on
don't
the
either.
conditions themselves.
No,
so
it
it would
wasn't.
be just adding an additional condition to have a review with one
One
ASCC
ASCC member.
commissioner to just check on
Okay, the
lighting.
lighting plan.
to open lighting.
I'm okay to give them a couple of minutes to reply. if they
Yeah.
want.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna get off of audio so you guys can respond.
Oh, all right. So thank you very much for your thoughtful comments and commentary amongst each other. Regarding the lighting plan, I think and maybe this is a question to staff as well, just how would that work in practice? We'd need a little definition. It could be as simple as a meeting or with one of the commissioners, but we want to sort of understand what the process would be to get from where we are this evening to a final approval with the lighting if it was a future meeting. And if that's even possible, and I gotta posit that with staff.
I mean, we pass it with the condition that a lighting plan needs to come back for review by one, as we've discussed, one member. And so that then as your building permit is getting, as the approval process is going through, you need to submit that lighting plan and it comes to one of us. It doesn't require a meeting. And then we approve it. Now, what we're asking for is for it to comply with the design guidelines. We have some more specifics that were mentioned here. the design guidelines provide a quantitative route to meet as a specification. So it's very straightforward to meet.
Well, I was gonna suggest that maybe there's a mock-up. I mean, that maybe you put up some lights and we'll see for the neighbors if they can see across the valley. You know, I don't want anyone looking into a light bulb, you know, who lives in this town. So that's just it. And I didn't realize until this afternoon that all those Monterey pines are coming down. And so that, you know, people who are down and across the way are looking up into that trellis. And so you may even reduce fixtures. I mean, at how much activity is it gonna get at night? You know, sort of thing. So, you know, I'm not sure you want a bunch of kids out there in the dark anyway. So,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that that lighting is perfect.
I have a question too, just to kind, you know, I guess a mock-up would be nice. It maybe sounds expensive. One question is, I'm assuming you have topo for the entire Priory property. I mean, is it, you know, if they were to basically prepare a fairly simple site section where you could actually get a sight line of, you know, if someone's walking along that trail or if you're on Portola Road, I mean, it feels fairly straightforward to be able to do some sight lines and look at how you're positioning the light fixtures, you know, if they have the angled side, how far they're sticking down below the members in the trellis. You know, that feels like something where if you're positioning them where you're not able to see them from those angles, then that should cover if you were further or more straight on, you know, like across the hills. So
Yeah.
I feel like if they could even just prepare something like that, that would be.
Well, if you do go across the hill and look across at the building site, with the trees being removed, you will see the trellis. So you know, for certain houses, maybe there are 5 or 6 of them, and I didn't go on Crescent, but you know, I just want to make sure that those people are protected. And you know what, I think this is gonna, I think it's gonna be fairly easy for you. I mean, you just need to study it and come back and meet with one commissioner. You know, and yes, other than that, we're good, right? Everything else,
I think so.
no, I think we should take a crack at doing this.
A motion.
Yeah, motion.
I have a comment. Can I just ask, can you just in a
No.
year look how drainage is happening and make sure it's happening as expected?
So
Did you hear the comment that, you know, there are going to be other projects and there's going to be a low road, entry road? I think that over time with all these projects, the drainage, am I speaking correctly, is going to be handled in a big way.
I think it's more than that. The project itself has taken the responsibility. They maybe were told that they had to be responsible. Either way, they're taking the responsibility to have a civil engineer address the water flow across the project.
Thank you. And public
I'll just
comment
add
is
as
over.
well that we did review the plan set. So like I did review the civil plans, looking at the drainage and the way stormwater's moving across. I'm not a civil engineer, but I mean, that was taken into consideration and under review by us as part of our
I
review
feel
process.
comfortable in the comprehensiveness of all these projects that it will be handled. So,
Yeah, even just this project, I think
Yeah.
it should be.
Yeah, there's been a lot of concern over that.
okay,
From the
so let's
address.
try to do a motion.
Okay.
I can't do it.
I move
One of you
to
have to do it.
approve with the condition that a lighting plan come back for review by one ASCC member for compliance with the design guideline lighting code.
And possibly more than that.
Well, as discussed, I think to include a section that crosses Portola Road so that we understand.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, and maybe too, I mean, if you, again, if you have the topo, I know it takes effort to make it, so I'm not being flippant about it, but I do think probably if you have that, I would imagine it's fairly straightforward to do that. I mean, you could do that on the uphill side as well if there's concern there, but yes, I would also
So
second
do we
the
have a
motion to
second?
approve.
Do we have a
Yeah.
second?
If I may, through the chair, I have a couple of questions for clarifications for practicality of implementing that condition. So if I hear correctly, we're having a condition of approval that would allow for one member of the ASCC to review the final lighting plan for approval. But Commissioner Chung, you indicated that it should comply with the design guidelines. Are you referring to that very specific table of lighting brightness and distance between fixtures, or are you leaving this up to the ASCC member to make the discretionary approval of the final lighting plan? Because I would say that they are two different things. One may find that the ASCC member may find that the plans meet the design guidelines and maybe not meet that specific table. And the other, I guess, approach would be that we're looking for it to meet the table that's located within the design guidelines and have the ASCC member confirm that, yes, that is in fact true. So I guess a little bit of clarification there, as we don't typically strictly implement that table towards a project, and this type of condition is typically left to the discretion of that one ASCC member.
I'm okay for the discretion. I thought it would be helpful to mention that table because I think that the table will be found to be very useful. I do think that the table was well thought through and it gives you flexibility. And so to the extent that it seems mysterious how to meet the design guidelines, I think the table will be helpful. And so there's a question there that I think Jake is asking on your behalf, which is, would you prefer that we say just meet the table, or leave it up to our discretion?
Well,
we're going to be using the table as part of how we evaluate it, but it's possible that we'll find that even though you didn't meet the table, you clearly met the spirit of the design guidelines.
I defer to the designer here. Met the table.
Yeah, it was our understanding that our lighting design actually met the town design. The lighting and the light level.
I'm sorry, it's very challenging to
We cannot hear.
understand who's speaking.
Sorry.
Jay, you might.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that our proposed lighting design met the town design guidelines for lighting as well as the light levels in the table.
And we believe staff can verify if that is the case or not.
That's why I'm worried.
We can't hear.
I'm sorry, your microphone's not on yet, Dana.
All right, audio issues. You can go ahead, Dana.
So yes, that is my point, is that the trees have been removed. A lot of trees will be removed. This is a different kind of site. It sits up high. It will be very exposed. I think this is more than the design guidelines. So again, I want to make sure that neighbors are protected and people on Portola Road from not looking into the source of light. You know, it's okay if there's a glow up there, but I don't want anyone looking at a light bulb. So that's my thing.
Then
Sorry,
But-
We want to go.
oh, if I may, I recommend that the condition of approval is left to the discretion of the one ASCC member who's reviewing it. And if they find that the table is being implemented correctly and that the lighting is adequate for the site, given the potential offsite impacts, they can make that discretionary approval of the final lighting plan. And that would be my recommendation of how you draft the comment, is to leave it up to the one member of the ASCC. However, if you want to add language related to strictly meeting the design guidelines as well, you may choose to do so. And then And then I would be specific that you'd want to include a light study for the potential impact, like that line of sight kind of light study, so that it's clear in the condition what you're asking for of the applicant in order to approve their lighting plan. And I'm sorry, your microphone's not on.
Your microphone's not on, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Your microphone is on. Okay, now, all right.
I'm happy with that language.
Okay. So do we need to amend the motion or? I think we need to amend the motion so it's clear.
Yes. So I move to approve the project with a condition for a lighting plan to come back for review by one ASCC member for discretionary approval for its the project meeting the design guidelines with a lighting study to assess offsite impacts, in particular the direct visibility of lighting fixtures.
Okay.
Second, is there a second?
Second the motion.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No opposed? That's 3 ayes. So good, you guys. So we're on the map. Yeah, I'm excited for you. I think this is a great start. Yeah. Thank you and sorry.
Good luck with the project.
What can I say? What a mess. That was very good of us. I mean, and it was great that you figured that out.
We did it. Through technical difficulties.
When
we
I heard the
persevered.
first feedback, I just thought, I can't do this. I'm not gonna be able to do this. Yeah. Someone get Carter?
He's coming
Oh,
back in.
How did you know?
he was on.
Maybe he was just listening.
Lights.
Whoa. I'm very proud of all of us for getting through this.
Yes, thank you everyone for your patience with our technical gymnastics.
Okay.
Okay, so what's the next thing on the agenda? We have minutes?
Minutes. Have you had minutes?
Hold on a second.
When I never saw any minutes. So,
Okay, so we have, so essentially we have commission reports, you know, and that's where I'd like to discuss putting something on our
Good.
next agenda. Or
okay,
on our
Yes.
agenda for
Agreed.
either, either July 8th or July 24th. And I'd like to suggest that we establish a subcommittee, to write a colleagues memo
Yep.
to discuss the process of ASCC review and what we're seeing on particularly significant projects that are going through a staff review to a high degree before they ever get to the ASCC.
Yeah.
The issue that I'm alluding to are a couple of appeals that happened in the last few years, and what looks like is going to be a real mess on a project that's coming to us in Westridge, where there's some complexity of the site relationships and the positioning of homes and improvements and essentially the view relationship between those. And the reason, I see a question in your eye, Kenny. The reason I'm bringing this up is that if all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, before there's any public review, there are, to me, missed opportunities, for simple adjustments, in site relationships when the design is still scribbles and sketches, and before the geotechnical work, has been done, and before, the civil engineering and the lighting design and the landscape, water, management budgets and all this stuff, that I think the ASCC should have an opportunity to be a sounding board for neighbors, and a place where design professionals and applicants, and neighbors, can actually hear each other. And I'd want to make sure that, as we put this, memo together, that it indicate the significant need, for early site meetings, when designs are still not ready for review, but are ready for comments.
We've been talking about this for years.
Yeah, and it was the way that we did it, I mean, I sound like you just put repeat on me, because I've been doing this, the ASCC since 91, and in 91, I guess the state of planning was, pretty, immature, and many projects came before the ASCC 2, 3, 4, 5 times, so that the applicants had an opportunity and the neighbors had an opportunity to resolve things, and to bring up important issues, not dissimilar to what your concerns were, with the Priory, with the lighting of the trellis. If you'd have seen that, one time earlier, when before there was an awful lot of, drafting and design and engineering, the issue of lighting would have still been there. And it could have been easily resolved as, as part of the final application. It's just that, the applicant didn't have an opportunity, to actually respond to that, because they didn't know it was likely to be an issue.
Right.
And I do think that, doing it early and often, one, gives the ASCC practice. It also, to me, will relieve, some of the issues and the worry that planning staff, has about bringing applications to the ASCC. And I do think that, I know from the years and years of experience that I had, that projects were better because of it.
That's right.
Applicants were happy about it. Neighbors were happier about it. And
now they're so financially invested by the time it ever gets to us.
Yeah.
It would kill their projects.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting question. I think we need to be really careful about adding gateways.
Well, to me, this isn't an added, to me, the way that I would want to, capture it, is as an opportunity.
Yes.
Is that, there, to me, there would be a low level, of, staff review required. There needs to be enough clarity in the design that, you can understand, where the moving parts are. And in the old days, it really was scribbles and sketches. It was not, detailed, highly complete, documentation, but it was enough to know, is this a good place to put stuff? And is the relationship between this house and that house, such that, that we need to take into account those relationships. And I think that, the public for sure is going to be, benefited. The applicants may feel, a little more hamstrung, but I do think that there won't be this, whipsaw at the end, and I do think it will create a better sense of community, around, people's building projects.
I think applicants will be happier. I mean, my whole history is applicants coming to us and saying, thank you. I mean, this has not been an awful experience for people going to the ASCC, because we see it. We live in the town.
It's essentially taking, what Jana and I do in, schematic design, before,
Yes.
Anything is really hard yet, and sharing it, so that the neighbors feel like they've been heard. Applicants, have an opportunity to understand what the ASCC's potential concerns, would be.
I've asked the new owner of my parents' property on Boulevard, with their architect to come to us first. and talk to us, and we'll flesh it out, take a walk, study it, and see what we think. Because I think it will be a much better project with our input. So I hope this, I mean, can we do that? And will you be the other person on the committee?
I can be, but I did want to hear.
No,
Andy's
I'm
2 cents.
happy with that. I think we need to be careful, like, I don't think more hamstrung is something that we need for the residents at all. And so a little more hamstrung, I think, is something we need to look closely at. And I've had a chance to understand what the ASCC process was for at least one project, which is my own home, and which has a history of approvals and we're trying to get things done. And my observation was that in that case, the way that it worked is the resident didn't even need to hire an architect because the interaction with ASCC was so functional. And so they didn't have to hire an architect. They didn't have to hire, at that time, a structural engineer. They didn't have to hire a civil engineer. We're not removing those.
No, I'm not suggesting that we remove it. I'm just suggesting that, that the ASCC, gives the applicants an opportunity. Because if I think that giving people the opportunity, to submit early, before they're so deeply invested, applicants will enjoy the feeling. I know the owners will, the feeling that they've got some level of buy-in, early.
Yeah, and I'm not currently practicing architecture, but I think it would be nice if I were an architect to be able to access that kind of expertise at the very start of a project. So, and as a resource and as an opportunity, but not as a requirement, I'm all for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, right now it is, and I think as a group, in a lot of ways, it feels like there's a lot of negativity around it because it's happening so late and because people are so financially and emotionally invested. And so, I think, of all my projects in Portola Valley, I think that we would absolutely capitalize on being able to talk with members of the ASCC in advance and have a sense of, okay, when we go into this hearing, is it going to be positive, or have I gotten feedback and I decided that I didn't like it and I want to, proceed, and knowing that going in, like I made that decision, I might have to kind of fight for certain things. In general, I think just the knowing aspect of that is helpful.
Sorry, through the chair, I'm noticing members of the public are raising their hands because they want to chime in, but this isn't an agendized discussion.
We can't take comments. This is committee.
Right, well, so you
committee
guys
reports.
so the direction is you're gonna put together a
Subcommittee.
Yeah.
subcommittee, colleagues memo,
Yeah,
come
so-
back, discuss it.
So let's
Correct.
vote on the subcommittee. So,
I move to approve your subcommittee.
Okay. All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Good.
So we'll develop that, colleagues memo. We'll circulate it through staff. Staff will, then circulate it, in accordance with the Brown Act.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And then we will discuss it at some point. The
Well,
SEC.
Who's the subcommittee?
You and me.
I figured we probably had to go on record saying that, right?
I guess residents are free to write in.
What?
Residents are free to write in if they want to. Right?
Yeah.
Right,
So-
yeah.
So
Well, it'll be-
those that were raising their hands. based on-
Dave, Christie, Rita.
It will be on the agenda, right?
Send us your comments. We just can't take them in public. Because it's not an agenda.
Not on the agenda.
Okay. I move for approval. I mean, move for, move.
I have a just brief staff report.
Starts
Okay.
with an A.
Yes, let me get off audio.
Okay, just very quickly for staff reports before we wrap up the meeting. I just wanted to mention a couple staffing updates. We have a new interim planning and building director, Terrence Grindle, has joined us. He's been with us for a few weeks. He's here in the schoolhouse, actually. Terrence has a lot of experience. He's a planner. He retired in Newark after 15 years, I believe. Yep. He spent time in Saratoga and Redwood City as well. So it's been really great to have him aboard. He's been providing excellent advisory support to us staff, so it's great to have him. The other bit of news is that we're going to have John Biggs, who was our previous interim director, rejoining us sometime in July, I believe, as well. So we'll have him returning to help us out. So us staff are feeling really good about those moves. Just that the other thing related to the housing element implementation, the zoning code amendments that the ASCC and Planning Commission worked so hard on. They went to council has had 2 meetings. They had a regular meeting and a special meeting. And then this coming Wednesday will be the second reading of the ordinance. And we're expecting that to be a smooth process, hoping to get approval there. And once we get approval on the second reading, it's on the consent agenda. Staff will move ahead and provide all of that material onto HCD. And so we're hoping HCD will make quick work of that. And we're hoping to be our housing element to be recertified. So those are the next steps there. Just wanted to keep you guys in the loop. So that's it for staff reports. Thank you.
Okay.
We cannot hear. We still cannot hear.
The microphone's not working on.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
Well, slack.
Thanks
Pizza
everybody for
time.
your patience.